Put it on vibrate.
All right. So, first time for both of us.
Yeah.
It's pretty intimidating, no?
Yes. Yeah.
But
welcome.
it's good. You're a first time guest and I'm a first time host.
Yep. That is the case. This is also my first time, being interviewed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Period. I think.
How are you usually with talking? Do you have a lot to say?
No, not
Not
particularly. I mean, I guess it depends on the topic. I'm sure I can be pretty verbose on random things, but I guess it
Like
depends.
what?
Maybe art, animation, cartoons, probably. Yeah, but also, I mean, as you get older, you realize how ignorant you can be about things. So maybe you want to pull back on any strong opinions.
Okay.
About things,
Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed with my own conversation, it's I sometimes go into a conversation trying to convince other people.
Oh.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely not a good thing for a good conversation. So I try to convince people of my opinion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my opinion is the best one. So
okay. Yeah, that's the context of sharing your opinion. Is not usually okay.
Yeah,
that's fair.
So that's something that I need to work on.
I mean, I feel like it depends. I mean, if that's the general approach to any opinion sharing that you have, I guess that's something to work on.
Yeah.
But I imagine if it's ethical, you're sharing things about ethical behavior, and you're I think most people maybe oversee this sort of thing that they can engage with in their life. It's fair to try to convince them, I guess.
But also it's a learning experience to know that you cannot change people's opinions in one sitting. That's something that you have to learn. That problem I have, I think I feel I can change people in one sitting. That's not a good one.
Yeah, I suppose it's not. I suppose it's not good. Maybe it's not realistic.
Yeah.
To maybe enter most conversations thinking that you might change them, and provided that you guys have a disagreement.
Yeah.
But I think also it changes based on the demographic. I imagine somebody who's 16, you're talking to them, you can definitely leave an impact onto them versus if you're speaking to someone who's 37, and you guys are having a conversation about some foundational basis of existing and how people should interact in society or jobs or something like that. They probably have so much of their beliefs set in such a way that you can't shake their foundations, or but I imagine a good conversation can percolate with other things that might have been pointing towards something that you might want to shift in your belief system, maybe.
Yeah. And also, you said with the younger, if I looked at myself, younger self, 16, I think it also depends on who you're talking to. How do you regard that person?
Right. Yeah.
If you really think that person knows something, then you start listening.
Yeah.
Otherwise, talk to my mom. I don't think I ever listened to her.
Less and less as you got older, or do you feel you listened to her
So, for different reasons. When I was younger, I wouldn't listen for a different reason. And now, for a totally different reason. So that poor woman, she never had a listener in me. How was your relation with your parents?
I think my relationship to my parents is pretty good. I imagine, I think I listened to my parents a lot. I mean, they probably, I got into trouble here and there, but nothing outrageous.
Yeah.
You know, just talking in class, little boring, basic, unimaginative things you can get in trouble for in class.
Yeah.
And I don't think, I feel like I listened to my parents a lot, like, because there'd be little things that my friends would want to do. And I'm like, well, I don't know if my parents would be okay with that. Like, so, and I, like, they didn't want me to leave the block, like, when I was young. So I didn't do that. And anytime I realized as I got older that, like, traveling was so exciting for me, just getting on a train, going somewhere, because I listened, the parameters that my parents set, I put them in my brain, and I continued behaving, with those parameters.
Yeah.
I don't know if they would agree with that, if they would be like, oh yeah, you listen to our parameters. Yeah. I don't think they would probably recognize that maybe so much, but I think I listened to my parents a lot. I actually was thinking about this the other day. I was thinking about the maturity of my parents in, like, different regards. How much I don't really know them because they grew up in Trinidad and I grew up here. And the only thing that I feel like confidently that I probably might disregard in like advice from my parents is probably any complex ethical approaches to things, only because, not because I don't think that they consider ethics in their movements in their lives. I just feel like in terms of, like, social engagements and things like that, I feel like, some people can think, like, legal equals okay and good, and other people are like, no, obviously there's a greater variety and of openness around much more comprehensive version of, like, good and evil. And then there's like legality and religion, and I feel like my parents kind of, like, really concerned themselves with religion and legality for the parameters of how they think about, like, maybe ethics and moral behavior, where I think, like, that is very limited in terms of, like, allowing you to think about how to be a decent and ethical and moral agent in the universe. But other than that, I think I listened to my parents growing up, and I think I'd listen to them pretty much about anything.
I followed you for a day now. And I kind of have a sense that you work hard. You do work 7 days a week, so that's one factor. But do you work hard?
I think I work hard. I don't know if I work smart, but I definitely think I work hard.
Where do you get that from?
I'm fairly certain that a large part of my work ethic comes from insecurity. I think about it sometimes because my parents are at least socioeconomically and, like, in their standing and with their family, they seem to be successful. My father is a mechanic for GM, and, like, it's not exactly like a high position in society, but he's very good at his job, and people, like, recognize that when me or one of my brothers show up at his job, they're like, hey, it's Claudio's kid, like, you must know so much about cars, you must, like, have an intimate relationship with vehicles. And, like, because he's very hardworking and also just passionate about cars, he's always working on cars at home, he's working on cars at work. People know that he will, like, work on, if someone, like a family member or a friend, comes by and, like, have a problem with my car, they know he's concerned with doing a good job, but also because he likes cars. My mother, I'm not too sure if my mother is passionate about her job. My mom also works in finance. She's an accountant. She's the CFO.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Of a like a mega church sort of. I don't know if it's called a mega church. It's just a big church. And she's seems to be very competent at like just organizing information and math and things like that, paperwork kind of stuff. I'm not too sure if it comes from any sort of passion for math or numbers. I don't know if she's doing it because she loves that work, but I know she's also very hardworking, and they're both respectively in their positions very competent at their crafts, at their work. And that's something that I recognize that I'm just, I don't think I have any particular, I'm not particularly, what's the word I'm looking for? Exceptional in any like craft or work per se, other than my work ethic. But I don't think I've honed any sort of skill set or, it's particularly a skill set that, and it doesn't necessarily have to be financially viable per se, but I'd like to be able to have a tantamount like skill set to my parents of understanding and knowing a thing that I do all the time. And that's what I think that's what I bring to painting, and that's what I bring to drawing. I don't even really paint. I painted a little bit, but and that's what I'm trying to bring to the craft, is like be the equivalent of like if I had a kid. I don't plan on having any kids. It'd be nice if people thought like, oh, you must know so much about painting, because the same way my father is kind of respected for his work. I'd like to have that sort of relationship with a craft and work. And I think that's what drives me to get better and good at it.
Was that something that you learned, or you were always like that?
Oh, definitely something I learned. I don't think I was ever lazy, but I was, I was never lazy, but I didn't have any focus on anything. I didn't have anything to lock onto. I kind of doodled here and there growing up. I went to college and I changed my major 3 times, like from like vet tech, because I liked animals. I still like animals. But like nothing sparked anything to keep me like locked in on, like I didn't like fire off on different cylinders that would keep me locked in on any one thing. So I would just not I would just kind of fall off of a lot of things. So I think once I realized drawing and painting was something I was interested in, I really locked in. And I really wished I figured that out earlier, because there was like so much energy just wasted, I'm going to get this little job, or I'm going to change my major. Like I didn't have any direction or focus or passion for anything particular. So, and I didn't grow up in the same environment as my parents did, where maybe the world encouraged them to make sure that happened early on. Yeah. Like you either picked what you were going to do, or you found your passion early and you did it, and you made sure that it was financially viable earlier on in life.
Do you also think that our kind of understanding of hard work changes with time as well? Because for me, I think I knew what working hard was, like to work hard, but the intensity of it, I got to learn as I'm growing. So now I know that, so probably like when I was younger, maybe like 3 hours, 4 hours of like nonstop work, I would say, well, I worked hard today. But then once you grow up and then once you actually face real life, you're like, oh no, it's 8 hours.
Yeah.
And then it gets 10 hours and then 12 hours. And then only then you understand is that people who work hard, who succeed, it's actually like sacrificing some health a little bit.
Yeah.
And also like pushing that human potential to almost to the edge.
Yeah. I mean.
So I guess, is that what you would say as well? Like, do you think that's a correct observation? That what age you kind of regard hard work differently?
Yeah, I imagine that's a little more universal, that like as you get older, the context of hard work changes. And I also think you become, disenfranchised with or disillusioned with the fairy tale that hard work equates to success per se.
Yeah.
I think because there are plenty of hardworking people that it needs to be hard work plus a couple of other things.
Yeah.
You can be working as hard as, like, I don't know, someone else in a different field, but that field has either more social or financial rewards.
Yeah.
Because people want either that service or that work, or people just respect that pursuit. But also, I don't know.
And it's also kind of crazy that there are things that people really work hard on, and it requires a lot of work. But for just an observer, you never pay that much attention to it. You never think that this might be actually a lot of work.
Yeah, maybe. I guess that depends. I mean, are there things that you started that you were like, oh, this is not going to be too much work, and it turned out to be?
Yeah, this thing. This exact thing. Like, the first day I thought, well, it will be just a setup, and you put in the mics, and then you turn on the cameras, and that's it. But with all these cables and all these memory cards and everything, it takes me 2 hours to set this thing up. That's
2 hours just to set up?
Just to set up. And then and then packing these things away, and then making sure that these all tiny little things, you don't misplace them. Otherwise, for the next time, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So you cannot show up to a podcast with one mic.
Yeah.
Or maybe you have the mics, you have the recorder, and you're missing a cable. So yeah, that's one of the things. And right now, when I was talking to you, I was like, did I set up that camera correct? Am I blocking you or not? So I guess this is one of those things that I never thought it would be this hard.
Yeah. What I have been learning recently is that when you find out you're passionate about like a craft or anything in general, sometimes it requires, you find out that these other little parts.
Yeah.
So like, let's say, you have all these little parts and you're not like a particularly organized person.
Yeah.
You start to have to implement new behavioral patterns to continue doing that thing that you like doing. If you're somebody who misplaces things all the time, that's going to start hindering, you setting up this thing, and then you might have to start shifting that behavior so that way this passion can continue unimpeded.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that with painting and drawing, where I always used to just shoo away anything that didn't have to do with me, just like figuring out how to, like, I don't know, draw a person's body. Yeah. But lately I've been like, at Grand Central Atelier, starting to practice there. There's just this there's the philosophy of approaching studying from nature, and like there's like a lot of reading that they encourage you to do, and these are things that I would have just shooed away before, but there's a lot of things around the mindset that you want to develop and hone, so that way you can become a better craftsman in this scenario. And I realized I was like, oh, I have to change other aspects of my personality to make sure that I'm well suited to continue doing this craft. Because there's just, certain aspects of life you can't continue engaging in if you want to be, I don't know, like a certain type of person, like I need to find like a good example. I kind of had no interest in art history. It didn't seem like it was going to be relevant to me drawing a good drawing per se. But now there's a sensitivity and there's a history to the craft that I'm engaging in. And it would really behoove anybody in any craft that they're doing to like learn the history and why and how this craft is being now taught to you, and the reasons why certain things are being valued or not valued, is worth reading about or investigating. Because there's so many things in our lives that we take for granted that we don't reinvestigate, like why something works or why it doesn't work. There's like there's context to be considered, I feel like it's kind of like, with culture, like you don't just throw on a t-shirt with a symbol on it, right, that it might have like a religious connotation to it. And you don't just throw it on because like, I like this t-shirt, it's very soft and it has like this cool, like, I don't know, snake or something on it. But there's like history attached to that symbol that's on your that's on the shirt that you're wearing, and you might just want to know a little bit about it. You don't have to study history or anything like that, but you might want to read an article that just talks about what that symbol is and what it means to other people, so that way you don't mistakenly associate yourself with maybe people that you don't want to be associated with, or maybe in other cases appropriate people's culture or something like that. It's just one example, but like there's probably more reasonable examples for like context of the history of like pursuing something.
So GCA, do they help you? Like, you think it's helping you with your art?
I think so. Yeah.
Or maybe let me put it this way: do you think institutions help with things like art?
Do I think institutions help with things like art? I think institutions can help with the technical craft of something. It can give you greater context, because usually institutions or ateliers, they're somehow connected to the grander, both the history and the grander contemporary space of how whatever it is you're doing, whatever art you're doing, is connected to the world right now. And it puts you around other people who are concerned with, who have similar values. So I think it definitely can be helpful. And it's helpful for me. I know I don't have some people don't have like their own personal work ethic, so they kind of like unintentionally outsource that to the school that they go to, or the the learning space that they go to, and that place provides the structure for you to continue doing the thing that you want to do. Because they have a time they start and a time at the end. You don't get to move that around the way you want to move that around. And that I find very helpful for me, because even though I'm not lazy. I don't find it difficult to do like tasks. However, I find it difficult for me to maintain like a focus or organizing tasks to be done in an efficient way. Or I can procrastinate a bit, like anybody else. But having like the studio, having like the Art Students League before GCA, and having GCA now, a place where you go to and we have a set task to do, and I don't have to now set up my own personal rails to do a thing. So yeah, I find that super helpful for me. I know there's people who, as soon like once they leave, they can continue doing the same amount of work and the same level. But I feel like for me, it might be a bit difficult to try to like develop my own work ethic. But yeah, I think it's helpful for that. And also just, it gives you so many resources that, in this day and age, we can access a lot of resources easily online, but it's the curation of that information and the way it is, fed is not the right word, but dispensed to you is important.
One thing that I do agree with is being surrounded by like-minded people. That thing has worked a lot for me. And so this one time I was in college, and there was this video game on Facebook. I don't know if you remember, they used to have these games.
Yeah. They used to have the farming game. That was super popular. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So one of them was the Tetris game. And I would always play this thing. And I started at some, like, I don't remember the numbering system, but I started somewhere like 50 and took this all the way to like 300, like whatever the ranking is. And I was pretty confident that this is a very good way to play this, and I thought I'm really good at this. Until this one time, I went to a buddy's room, a Vietnamese kid, and he was playing this game, exact same game. And so to give you a proportion of the scoring, so what I did was like around like maybe 300. And this kid, he was doing like 3,000.
Oh.
So that's how different the thing was, the skill. Yeah. And then just by looking at him, I come back to my room, and just by looking at him, how he does that, I tried the exact same thing. That growth that I had from 50 to 300, that probably took a couple of months. And then from that 300 to what probably like 1,500, right away.
Wow.
Just by looking at this kid.
Yeah.
And I think that's the part that if you're surrounded by like-minded people, you kind of pick up these stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I was thinking about, I don't want to speak poorly about any other space of where I learned art, but like just the standard, the bar is just pretty high at Grand Central Atelier, and like the skill sets that people have around there. Yeah. It's in large part it's due to because, people have the opportunity to be in that space. I mean, there are plenty of people in different places that if they had the opportunity, they would be being produced in that way, but like being in that space, there are just questions about color and light and draftsmanship that wouldn't have crossed my mind maybe for 10 years if I was just doing this by myself. And so like being in a space like that really can hone you and teach you a lot pretty at a rate that you wouldn't be able to accomplish on your own. So yeah. And I remember having the experience of watching somebody draw twice, and it immediately changed the way I drew. Yeah. Like I felt it in my body, like the way I drew immediately changed. And now that's a real great experience. Yeah. To be able to.
And I learn. Think only for that, probably institutions are worth it.
Yeah.
Because you do learn from that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely great. These spaces that hold knowledge of how to do things. Yeah.
So once you're done with this, well, what's next for you?
I don't know. Well, the situation with me, Grand Central is like a 4-year program, but it's not exactly cheap, and so my parents helped me out with the first year, and I have to figure out the other ones. Maybe I might be able to convince them to help me out with the second year. But right now, when school is over, I'm probably just gonna return to studying at the Art Students League, where I've studied for like over 5 years already now, and that's where I've been doing a lot of my practicing. And I'll probably just bring a lot of things that I learned from there to continue practicing. There are things that I can continue working on that I've learned from GCA, that will help me hone my skills. And I used to have the intention of making comics and cartoons, but I'm really not too sure what I want anymore. And I'm trying to like not be too concerned about like, oh, well, what am I going to do with this? I just want to kind of like continue just concerning myself with honing the craft as and becoming exceptional at draftsmanship and painting is just something I'm interested in general. And I think the application of it, I can play around with. I just feel like it might come and go. I'm not sure.
But why do you think you're not into comics as much anymore?
I think...
I guess what I'm trying to say is that also a byproduct of an institution, like kind of beating the thing out of you?
I think that's definitely a part of it, but I think the truth is that I didn't know what it took to make any art in general. And it's kind of like maybe I don't know if it's a good analogy, but maybe like someone's trying to get from point A to point B, and to get there they have to like climb a mountain to get to point A to point B. But as they climb the mountain, they change on the way, and they didn't realize that to get to point B, these things would happen, or this is what you'd have to do to get there. And your entire purpose for getting to the other side has now shifted as you have gotten up there, because you have greater context about what it looks like to get over there. And so, like on the path, I mean, it started with me taking a couple of drawing classes and going to comics classes. Then I was like, oh, I don't know how to draw. I need to practice drawing. And so I went to start figure drawing, and figure drawing is like infinite. Like, and it's this huge thing you can keep getting better at. And I felt like, I don't know if I fell in love with it as much as I've become become obsessed with trying to get better at that. And that became like, that kind of like shifted. And during the practice and the things I was learning about what it takes to be a good draftsman in like at least figure drawing, it kind of like changed like a lot of my amorphous goals, which maybe, I don't know if it's a result of me not really having strong goals of making comics, or if like the practice and the institutions have kind of like maybe like shooed that away. It might be a little bit of both. I think also, to be honest, my passion to make like art, comics or cartoons or just art in general is like this big. And then like my insecurity about my technicality and my inability to accomplish those things to a good level is this big. And I think my insecurity is just bigger than my desire to make art. My insecurity about not making good art is bigger than my desire to make art. And I need to find a way to balance that out, because I feel like it's also come from a place of not wanting to be vulnerable. Like if you spend hours every day making artwork, you start putting your value into your self-value into that. So if you decide I'm going to try to make artwork now that I'm going to put out there, and it's bad, you're going to be like, you're going to feel like crap. And I think, I guess I'm also trying to, not intentionally, but maybe playing it safe by being like, I'm only practicing right now. I'm only working in the studio in such a way that's like about honing a craft and not necessarily executing art objects or producing something to present to people. And maybe in that way I'm kind of like trying to protect myself a little bit, maybe. That's what I think.
And I think that's part of doing this, like this podcast, is for me an exercise in getting comfortable with something that I'm not like, perfect. I mean, as I said earlier, is that I have so many flaws in a conversation, but I kind of feel like if I keep doing it and then doing it in front of people and putting it online, there is something to permanence. It's so scary. Like when you talk in like a day-to-day conversation, there is something at the back of your head kind of telling you is that nobody's recording this stuff. So if you mess up, you're going to repeat the sentence again. So what? Or if you say something super wrong, it's just wrong for that minute or for that very moment. And then after that, nobody remembers. Like who remembers the entire conversation? But once you put a conversation online, like when it's recorded, there is something to the permanence. And I think for me, doing this is an exercise in getting comfortable in something that I'm not probably the best, but I'm putting it out there. Because one of the things that I realize with myself is that I do fall into the trap sometime of just continuously learning something. Because that becomes a comfort zone. That becomes a comfort zone.
Stay a student.
Stay a student for the rest of your life. Like you keep doing it again and again and again, and then the longer you do it, the harder it becomes to break out of that cycle, because that kind of becomes your day-to-day life.
I've been thinking about that too, like it feels it's a lot more comfortable to just stay a student, because you don't have to execute the thing. You don't have to worry about making anything in perpetuity that can be attached to your personhood or something like that. In the same way, at least it would it's different if you're making art that you want to show people versus practicing drawing at school. And that's another conflict I've had, because I've been practicing for a while. I was like, maybe it's time to make art, but then I started going to this school, which is like completely restructured what it felt like I knew or know, or it just made me feel incompetent in drawing. So it's like, okay, I have to start over again, and that's like I have to learn. So I'm conflicted between like, am I just doing this to stay in my comfort zone, or has my awareness really become greater? And now I'm just like, I really do have to practice more to get better. And I think it's both. I don't think there's any reason that I shouldn't be able to practice making art while also still working on honing the craft. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. You can work on both, though it's very difficult to do so when you're at school. At least when you're at Grand Central, because it's like, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So finding space for your own work is a little difficult.
So it's like you go there at 8 o'clock, and then all the way to 5 o'clock is just constantly drawing and techniques.
Yeah, it's figure drawing. Well, they have different like what's the word I'm looking for? The curriculum starts off with with cast drawing. So casts are generally small reproductions of the David sculpture, Michelangelo's David sculpture, excuse me. And then we spend a lot of time working on modeling form and blocking in, and getting ourselves familiar with the way they conceptualize form, which is like 3 dimensions. Why things look like the illusion of 3 dimensions on a 2-dimensional surface.
Yeah.
And that is a lot harder than it sounds. Though, locking into that, especially if you spend time learning like a different language of conceptualizing form. So we do that, and then we start working with models some few months in, and we've just been figure drawing, and that's usually from 8:30 to 12:30. We figure draw, then we have a break, a half an hour break for lunch, which is really not very long.
Yeah.
And then we start back again at 1 to 5.
Yeah.
And that's.
Do you think like people like Michelangelo, they probably had like 1,000 really shitty sculptures, and then one good sculpture, and they kept that, and they threw away everything else?
I think that I should know more. This is another thing. Like I should know more about Michelangelo and the history of these great artists. I'm sure he made plenty of terrible art, or at least, they talk about how he tried to get rid of some stuff. I think him and Leonardo da Vinci tried to get rid of a lot of their work, or they did successfully get rid of some of the stuff that they didn't want people to see. But.
And those are the stuff that people know that they got rid of.
Yeah, right.
There might be a bunch out there that were like total horse shit.
Yeah. Right. And, and it's interesting how we still revere them, because like there's still like things that we know that Leonardo and Michelangelo didn't know about anatomy, but they knew way too much for their time, though. They still knew a lot. I think I remember hearing somebody mention something about Leonardo da Vinci having like discovered certain aspects of the human body that would have been helpful for medical scientists at the time, but they just didn't, like, I don't know, they just didn't acquire that information. But yeah. But yeah, I think everybody knows that they have to get through their 1,000 shitty drawings and shitty paintings before they get to some good ones. But yeah, and it's, and also people don't talk about how mental that game is,
Yeah.
Because you're spending all this time, and people are like, oh, you're spending all this time drawing and painting. Are you good yet? And it's like, you show people what you're doing, and you're like, you spent 5 years doing this, and this is what you did. Like, it's so hard, and people think you're kind of like born with it and whatever, and it's like, nah, it takes a lot.
And it's like a detailed work takes a lot of time too.
Yeah,
a lot of time, a lot of discipline. And the thing with art is that some of these pieces that take a long time, by the time you start at the head, by the time you're at the toe, you start hating the head. Because you develop so many other new techniques and skills along the way to get to the toe that now you hate the head. Yeah,
you'd hope that, because you'd hope that you'd gotten better by that time. Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
You had that one drawing of an air. How long did it take you to draw that?
Oh God, I think it took me like a month and a half. I should have recorded the time exactly. But
and were you working on it like regularly?
Yeah,
pretty
Monday,
much every day.
Pretty much Monday through Friday for about 3.5 hours. Monday through Friday, because there'd be like little breaks here and there. I maybe missed a few days, just from burnout and being tired. But yeah, that drawing of that air cast was like definitely over a month and a half work.
Yeah, and it's still not done.
Yeah, and and I still didn't finish it. And other people in my class like finished much more complex stuff. And yeah, like that's another thing. Like coming from where I used to practice at the league, I wasn't like an exceptional draftsman, but like I had honed a certain set of skills that made me feel like they would be transferable to go into this school. And I got there, and it was like actually made it harder for me to do the things there. And when you're in a space where you're not making art, you're actually working on honing a set of skills. Like when you're in a classroom and everybody's making their own art, there's a lot of space where you can't really judge each other on because you're doing your own kind of thing. It doesn't have the same comparable. You can't compare them as easily if someone's working on like a comic about their childhood, and then there's someone else working on an illustration about this fantastical beast. They just have very different considerations. But when you're in a school where everybody's doing more or less one or two of the same things, you can't like the comparisons is just by default a part of the mental zeitgeist of like how you operate and move through the space. So being in there and like realizing like at least to my peers that I wasn't like grasping the skill set as efficiently as they were. That's another hard mental thing you have to like bolster yourself against and with when you're like, I'm a pretty weak link in this chain of practitioners. And yeah, it takes an extra mental fortification to keep pushing through to go 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And not be as good as your peers.
Yeah. And do you think life is probably a little harder for artists because art is their skill?
It's definitely harder in some ways. I think it's harder because the returns are not, like, boy, I wish I was like at this like obsessed and passionate about something that had financial returns.
Yeah.
Cause then and then you can keep doing it. It feeds the rest of your life in such a way that you can keep doing it. It holds up. But like drawing and painting feels like it takes so much.
Yeah.
Like you have to put your money into it. You have to put your time into it. You have to put your family's money and time into it. And it kind of, it takes, depending on what kind of art, there's all kinds of art in the world. So you don't have to this doesn't necessarily apply to everybody, but, in the particular vein that I'm practicing in, I'd say it's pretty hard. And
I also sometimes think that the skill, like from art in general, all of them, is pretty fragile too. Because Kim Jong-gi?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I figured.
The GOAT.
So, in one of his interviews, like, they asked him what he was scared of, and he was like, I'm scared of like one day waking up and losing all the skills. And that's why I keep sketching every single day. And then he says that even today I'm scared of like not sketching for a week and then losing the style that I've developed. I don't think you have in a lot of fields you have that thing, because with a lot of other professions you can go without working for like months. You can bullshit in the office. You can do remote work and all that shit and still show up whenever you feel like working. But I don't think you can do that with art. You lose a lot of skills.
Yeah.
You have to keep it sharp.
Yeah, there's no one of my instructors said that there's no biological like mechanism or reason for us to be able to make two-dimensional things look like three-dimensional. There's no reason that there's no biological evolutionary reason for you to be able to mentally be able to do that.
Yeah.
So like that facility is ridiculous. It's like ridiculous for your biological being to be doing.
Yeah, that's
it
true.
has like little to no utilitarian value for you to be trying to do that. So yeah, it's like something you have to keep on to try to maintain.
That's interesting. What do you think it is? Like, why is art only like unique to human beings? Is it unique to human beings? I
think there's degrees of it. Because I mean, like, yeah, you know, like animals decorate things and seem to take pleasure in things that have no immediate value on their safety or their satiation of like food or sexual desires. They seem to take pleasure in things. I think curiosity is an aspect of them being able to experience art in a way. Because sometimes they'll just be interested in something because it has a certain quality, either a sound or a look to it, and then they'll find themselves interested in it. And I don't think they necessarily make things to the same degree. They almost always have a utility. Like there's some birds that make the nests, and like some fish that you know make that sand design to attract mates. Though it doesn't seem to have a basic one to like. There's no reason. Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
No worries.
I'm not too sure I understand. I'm not a biologist or a zoologist, but I know some animals, you know, make pretty things to attract mates, and I don't know if that says to their mate that oh, you're good at making a nest. Does that necessarily mean a pretty nest? Does that necessarily mean anything else about your survival? Your survival abilities? I don't know, but it feels like to the extent we make art, to the extent that we do, I don't know why we do that.
Right.
I imagine it's definitely compulsory. It feels like everybody has to just kind of have to do it. I think it speaks to the stuff of life that is excluded from like the you know need for clothing, shelter, and food, and safety. It's very interesting. I don't know.
And I also think, to your point, that maybe there's some, like everything else that human beings do, there is some compulsion to it, and then we take it to another level just because then money gets in, and then, you know, competitions get in, and then you take it to a whole new level. Because I think like there is no reason for us to have chefs to cook us like all these different types of food, right? You just grab something from the tree and then you're done. Eat it, you're done. But then, like everything else with human beings, we take that compulsion and then bring it to such a level that we forget why we even started it.
We refine it. We add so many layers. Complicate it, and we love it. I mean, I'm not too sure why we take things to that level. I don't know. I don't know why I don't know. I feel like growing up I liked cartoons, and I was like, oh, this is so pretty and so fun, and it's bringing me life experiences that otherwise I wouldn't have had. Like watching cartoons made life exciting for me. And I wanted to bring that to other people. But the act of doing, of making those things is a different thing than just wanting, you know, you can love somebody, but the act of maintaining their wellness or making sure that you express their love is a different thing. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the act of actually doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Why do you paint or draw?
I don't know. Like, sometimes it's definitely a stress relief mechanism. I think that is part of it too. But then again, and I also don't sell my paintings because there was a time that I thought, oh, I should start selling my paintings, and then the next painting never happened. It took me months, and I never painted.
So
I never drew, just because I said, oh, I'm gonna start selling it. It added this extra thing to my head. I don't know what it was. I couldn't draw. And whatever I would do, I would always have that thing in my head that I'm going to sell this to somebody else. It has to be good enough.
Yeah.
So to your point earlier is that insecurity got magnified to a level that I couldn't draw anymore. And then I was like, okay, I'm lucky that I get to do this, and not for sustenance. I'm lucky that I'm doing this, so maybe I shouldn't mix this with And then it turned out to something much better for me because it is kind of cool to have something that to get good at and then not sell it.
Yeah.
So just for the heck of it.
It reminds me of in college, somebody, oh God, I was so jealous of him. He drew so well. And I was like, are you a fine arts major? He was like, no, you shouldn't make your hobby a job. You shouldn't make something that you like doing into a job. And I didn't know what he was talking about. I was like, God, it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know what you're talking about. And I get it now. I think something as deep and so clearly mysterious and strange as the desire to sing, dance, draw, clearly has no immediate utilitarian value, but the desire to do that is deep and mysterious, and can come from all kinds of different places, and the desire to do it consistently does not necessarily mean it should be associated with you shouldn't necessarily attach it to job, and like it could be a healthier relationship to that thing if you don't make it a job, or you don't take it to school, or you don't put it in these other contexts, because that could it could damage your relationship to it.
With singing, I kind of feel like I do understand why people sing. There's attracting the opposite sex factor in that. I think,
for sure.
You get popular if you're a good singer.
For
that
sure.
does make sense. But
I do think about
but
they're
with
like
art,
sirens.
But with art, I don't know anyone who said he got laid because he was a painter.
So I draw this really nice. Yeah, she's gonna. She's like, wow.
Yeah, that never happened. So that's why the drawing part and the art, that's actually a mystery to me.
Yeah. Singing and dancing kind of, they do have this visceral. Yeah. They're closer to the things that attract us to each other about things. Yeah. That's true. Yeah, for sure.
Do you have any online presence? Do you have social media, Instagram, something?
I do have an Instagram that I stopped being active on. I mean, it's still up. It's still present, but I stopped being active on it for a couple of different reasons. One of the reasons was I was gaining following. People were looking at me, my page and stuff, and I started feeling like what am I bringing people here for? You know, like even if they're only looking at my stories for like 2-3 seconds and then moving on to the rest of their scrolling, or they're coming to look at my drawings. I was like, what am I actually offering in experience to these people other than keeping them on a platform that is in aggregate not healthy for them? 90%, 95% people using Instagram and things like that are leaving afterwards not having checked up on their family, not having kept up with their friends or anything like that. They just watched a bunch of stuff that they might remember one thing of. Like in aggregate, I feel like I was just helping distract people with my mediocre drawings. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I also started feeling just insecure because I would spend all my time on Instagram and just be looking at people who were 3 times, 4 times, 5 times better. I'm just following artists who were just excellent draftsmen and painters and cartoonists. I'm just like, it's going to take me 17 years to get there. I can't, and I'm just like looking at that. I can't even enjoy the art anymore because I'm just thinking about how much I can't do what these people can do. So there was that aspect. Also with just generally just watching silly videos that brought me no long-term value. So I was like, okay, with those two combinations of things, maybe I should take a break from using Instagram, and I'll return when I feel healthy about my relationship to drawing and painting, and I feel like I will be sharing things that that I feel confident in and I value. And that, I don't have to completely vilify Instagram. I don't think it's like a completely evil organism. But I want to make sure that if I'm on there, my contributions are something that I feel aligned with, and my use of the media of the social media is something that I leave feeling like, okay, I didn't, I'm happy that I spent some time on Instagram, because most of the time when we come off of the social media, we're like, not the same thing as spending time at, you spend 20-30 minutes reading a book, you finish the book, you're like, and then like you spend 20-30 minutes on Instagram, you're like, you're like so
well, listen, I've seen you a handful of times at its place and all, but I saw you these couple of days, and I really appreciate that you're a hardworking person. And I also have a sense of like you're generally a very good person.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
I had that sense. So I hope you get what you're after.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. I appreciate that.
And then I hope I get to talk to you again, and you're a much you're what you wish you're going for.
Thanks. So. Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah, all right.
Like, I appreciate you chatting with me about everything.
Thank you. All right, let's end this.